My coworker burst into our office screaming I was screwing my boss for promotions while recording me for proof. When I stared at her in silence, she pointed at me and called me a salt who'd do anything to get ahead. I didn't flinch. That was 9 months ago. Last week, she had to move back to Ohio. I couldn't take my eyes off of her push-up bra, not because I liked her, but because I instantly knew the kind of person she was. I work as an engineer in NYC as the only woman with 7 other dudes. That was until little Miss Ashley joined. She somehow showed off her tatas and talked in this squeaky high voice that weirdly infantilized herself. I had my suspicions about her being a pick-me and all, but she ended up being really chill. Boy, I was wrong. We started inviting her to our weekly dumpling dinners where we get beers and chill. At our spot, she pointed out a girl and told me, "She looks like she's your type. I'd hit that if I were you." Before I could say anything, all the guys laughed and Joshua, my team leader, said, "We told you dressing emo and using all that black liner crap made you look fruity." I laughed, trying to shrug it off, and told Ashley that despite working as an engineer, I'm a heterosexual woman. At first, she laughed along with me and even exclaimed that we could go hunting for husbands together. But from there, whenever I spoke to her in the group, she'd act like she didn't hear me. And whenever me and Joshua tried to talk to each other, she would cut me off and try to overpower the conversation. Usually at work, she trusted everything that I told her and seemed to have a lot of respect for me. But throughout the entire week, she kept making passive-aggressive comments about how some of us had to earn our spots through actual qualifications. And on all the days that Joshua was meant to be in the office, she would wear pencil skirts that were too see-through to be by accident. Up until this point, I thought she had a crush on Joshua and was just trying to get his attention, but I was sitting in the bathroom stall procrastinating work and playing Candy Crush when I heard it. Ashley stormed in, screaming her head off on a phone call. "Sure, Amanda's nice and all, but I'm just sick of everyone pretending that it's normal that she got promoted in 6 months, as if she actually has any skill." And suddenly, everything made sense, because that's when she said, as if that salt has ever done any work outside of Joshua's bedroom, "You effing idiot, Joshua is gay." I wanted to yell, but instead, I stayed silent. I figured it was more fun that way. You see, there was a role I had before becoming a power plant turbine engineer, one that I had retired from, and that was being a petty bitch. So now it was time to bring it back. I started off by leaning into it. Every time I left Joshua's office, I'd adjust my lipstick like it had gotten smeared for a reason. During meetings, I would lock eyes with Joshua and let him be the first one to break it, and Amanda bit back. She started running into us during our daily hot dog runs and tried to impress him by shoving as much of the hot dog into her mouth as possible. Actually, so cringe. And if there was one thing Joshua was a sucker for, it was a massage. And under normal circumstances, I would never give a man a massage. But Joshua was more like my best friend than my boss. Well, that, and he was a whole fruitcake. So on Sunday night, I texted him asking if he wanted to come to work early, and I'd give him one. And when he said yes, I texted into the group chat saying, "Can't wait to see you early on Monday morning." Just the two of us, smiley face emoji. And right after, I sent a text saying that was meant for Joshua. And of course, Ashley viewed the message straight away. So there we were in his office on Monday morning, with my hands on his shoulders and him groaning out loud, when Ashley barged in with her phone out and the camera flash on. "Aha! You effing a word, I knew you had Joshua inside of you." Joshua slowly turned around, looking genuinely confused. "Ashley, what in the world? Did you just call Amanda a—" He was then interrupted by the sound of me bursting out laughing. I slowly walked over to the corner and picked up a photo frame of Joshua and his husband kissing. Ashley's face went completely red. "Get the F out of my office," Joshua said, his voice flat and assertive. Ashley was fired after that. Turns out calling your colleague a slur while illegally recording them is frowned upon, even if you think you're exposing an affair. After that, everything finally went back to normal. Until a month later, that is. Because when I walked into the office, Joshua pulled me aside and asked me what the F I was doing. Turns out someone had made me a Lonely Fans page, and all the photos were deepfake AI images of me completely unclothed. I instantly knew Ashley was the one behind it. The link was to a site I'd never heard of, and when I clicked it, my stomach dropped. There I was, or at least what looked like me, in positions and situations that made my skin crawl. The technology was sophisticated enough that even I had to look twice to confirm it wasn't actually me. My hands shook as I scrolled through page after page of fabricated content, each image more disturbing than the last. Joshua stood behind me, his face growing darker with each passing second. He grabbed his phone and started documenting everything, taking screenshots and saving URLs. His husband worked in cybersecurity, and Joshua was already texting him frantically for advice on how to handle this situation. The worst part wasn't just the images themselves. Ashley had created an entire persona around them, complete with a fake biography that painted me as someone who'd slept her way to the top. The comment section was filled with what I suspected were bot accounts, all spreading the same narrative about how I was unqualified and only got promoted because of my supposed relationships with male colleagues. I spent the rest of that morning in Joshua's office, working through the initial shock. We contacted the website's hosting service, filed takedown requests, and started documenting everything we could find. But Ashley was smart. She'd used VPNs and anonymous accounts, making it nearly impossible to prove she was behind it all. The damage started spreading faster than we could contain it. By lunch, I noticed sideways glances from people in the hallway. A few of the guys from other departments who usually chatted with me at the coffee machine suddenly found excuses to leave when I approached. The whispers followed me everywhere. That afternoon, I discovered Ashley had taken things even further. She'd created fake social media profiles using my name and photos, connecting with people from our industry, and sending inappropriate messages. My actual LinkedIn started getting strange connection requests and messages from men I'd never met, all referencing conversations I'd never had. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. Friends from college were texting me, asking if I'd been hacked. My mom called, confused about why someone had sent her a link to my dating profile. Each new discovery felt like another punch to the gut. Joshua did his best to support me, but there was only so much he could do officially. The company's HR department was sympathetic, but explained that since Ashley no longer worked there, their hands were tied. They could address any harassment happening within the workplace, but they couldn't stop what she was doing online. I tried to focus on my work, but concentration was impossible. Every time I opened my laptop, I wondered what new horror Ashley had unleashed. My professional email started getting flooded with spam and explicit content, clearly from bots she'd signed me up for. I had to create entirely new email addresses just to continue doing my job. The psychological warfare warfare extended beyond the digital realm. I started finding printed copies of the deepfake images slipped under my apartment door. My car had been keyed in the parking garage, with a particularly nasty word scratched into the paint. When I changed my phone number to escape the harassment, somehow she got the new one within days. Joshua and I worked late one evening, trying to trace the source of the latest fake profile. His husband had given us some tools to track IP addresses and identify patterns in the posts. We were making progress when my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Heavy breathing filled the line, followed by Ashley's voice, distorted through some kind of voice changer. She ranted about how I'd ruined her life, how I'd stolen her opportunity, how she was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. I recorded the call, adding it to our growing pile of evidence. But evidence of what? The police had already told me that unless she made direct physical threats, there wasn't much they could do about online harassment. The detective I spoke with seemed sympathetic but overwhelmed, explaining that these cases were nearly impossible to prosecute. My work performance started suffering. How could I focus on turbine specifications when my entire life was under attack? I made stupid mistakes, forgot important meetings, and missed deadlines. The very reputation Ashley was trying to destroy was actually beginning to crumble under the weight of her campaign. Some of my colleagues stood by me. The guys from my original team knew me well enough to recognize the lies, but I could see the doubt in others' eyes. In a male-dominated field, the stereotype of women sleeping their way to success was already too prevalent. Ashley had found the perfect weapon to use against me. I started documenting everything meticulously. Every incident, every new fake profile, every harassing message. I created spreadsheets tracking patterns in her attacks, noting times, methods, and platforms. If I couldn't stop her legally, maybe I could at least understand her strategy and find a way to fight back. The isolation was perhaps the worst part. I stopped going to our dumpling dinners, too paranoid about who might have seen the images. I avoided social events, terrified of the whispers and stares. My world shrank to just my apartment and the office, and even those spaces felt contaminated by her presence. One night, scrolling through yet another fake profile she'd created, I noticed something interesting. Ashley had made a mistake. In her rush to create content, she'd reused some photos from her own social media, just edited to include me. It was a small error, but it was the first concrete link I'd found between her and the harassment campaign. I started digging deeper, using the techniques Joshua's husband had taught us. Ashley might have been tech-savvy, but she wasn't perfect. She'd left digital breadcrumbs, tiny mistakes that could potentially be traced back to her. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope, but I knew I had to be careful. Ashley had already proven she was willing to go to extreme lengths to destroy me. If she realized I was getting close to exposing her, who knew what she might do next? I needed to be strategic, to gather enough evidence to stop her once and for all. As I sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by printouts and screenshots, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was going on the offensive. Ashley had awakened something in me, a determination I didn't know I possessed. She wanted to destroy my life? Well, I was going to make sure she regretted ever trying. The battle was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. But I was done being her victim. It was time to show Ashley exactly what happened when you messed with an engineer who'd spent years solving complex problems. She thought she was clever with her deepfakes and fake profiles. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning brought a new level of sophistication to Ashley's attacks. I discovered she'd created an entire network of interconnected fake accounts, each one reinforcing the other's lies about me. The fake LinkedIn profile now had endorsements from other fabricated professionals, all praising my supposed special skills with thinly veiled innuendo. She'd even created a fake company page that listed me as a consultant, complete with testimonials from imaginary clients describing how I'd helped them with their personal needs. Joshua's husband Benjamin spent his lunch break at our office, walking me through advanced privacy settings and security measures. He showed me how to lock down my real accounts and set up alerts for any new profiles using my photos or information. While we worked, he mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Ashley had been researching my family members on social media. Sure enough, that evening my younger sister called, confused about a friend request from someone claiming to be my coworker who wanted to share important information about me. My stomach churned as I realized Ashley was expanding her target list. I spent hours calling relatives, warning them about potential fake accounts, and explaining the situation without going into too much detail about the explicit nature of the harassment. The psychological toll was mounting. I found myself checking over my shoulder constantly, wondering if Ashley was watching me. Every notification on my phone made my heart race. Sleep became elusive as I lay awake imagining what new horror would greet me in the morning. My work suffered further. I botched a critical calculation on a turbine efficiency report that Joshua caught just before it went to the client. Ashley's campaign evolved beyond digital attacks. I started receiving food deliveries I hadn't ordered, all paid for with cash, arriving at the most inconvenient times during important meetings. The delivery drivers always had the same story. Someone had called claiming to be me, insisting the food was urgently needed. Once, an entire catering spread for 50 people showed up during a client presentation, causing chaos and embarrassment. My apartment building's security footage mysteriously corrupted whenever something happened. The printed photos under my door, the vandalism to my car, even an incident where someone had tried to pick my lock. None of it was captured on camera. The building manager was sympathetic but helpless, suggesting I consider moving for my own safety. The thought of Ashley driving me from my home made my anger burn even hotter. Joshua noticed my declining performance and pulled me aside one afternoon. He offered to give me some time off, but I refused. Work was the only thing keeping me sane, the only place where I had any control. He understood but made it clear that I needed to find a solution soon. The company couldn't ignore my mistakes indefinitely, no matter how much they sympathized with my situation. I decided to take a different approach. If Ashley wanted to play dirty, I'd use her own tactics against her. I created an anonymous blog documenting everything she'd done, being careful to stick to facts and avoid anything that could be considered defamation. I didn't use her full name, just calling her A, but included enough details that people who knew her would recognize the story. The blog gained traction surprisingly quickly. Other women in tech started sharing their own stories of harassment and sabotage. I received messages from people who'd had similar experiences, offering advice and support. One message stood out, a woman named Victoria, who'd worked with Ashley at her previous company. She had her own stories to share about Ashley's behavior, including screenshots of inappropriate messages and evidence of Ashley taking credit for other people's work. Victoria and I met at a coffee shop near Central Park. She looked exhausted, constantly glancing around as if expecting Ashley to appear. She told me about her experience, how Ashley had initially befriended her, then systematically undermined her work and spread rumors about her. Victoria had eventually left the company, but not before documenting Ashley's pattern of behavior. She handed me a flash drive with everything she'd collected. Armed with this new information, I felt a surge of hope. Ashley had done this before, which meant there might be other victims willing to come forward. I spent my evenings reaching out to former colleagues from Ashley's previous workplaces, carefully asking about their experiences. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Ashley had a history of targeting women she perceived as threats, always using similar tactics: false friendships, asexual rumors, and when those failed, direct harassment. But Ashley must have been monitoring my activities somehow. The day after I met with Victoria, the harassment escalated dramatically. My parents received a package at their home containing printed screenshots of the fake profiles and explicit images, along with a letter supposedly from me confessing to various indiscretions. My father called me in tears, not because he believed it, but because he felt helpless to protect his daughter. That same day, everyone in my professional network received an email from a spoofed address that looked almost identical to mine, containing links to the explicit content and a rambling message about how I was embracing my true nature. My phone exploded with calls and texts from confused and concerned colleagues. Some were supportive, others distant, and a few made inappropriate jokes that made me want to scream. Joshua worked damage control, sending a company-wide email explaining that I was the victim of a harassment campaign and that any inappropriate content should be reported and deleted, but the damage was spreading. A major client expressed concerns about my involvement in their project. A conference I was scheduled to speak at suddenly found they had scheduling conflicts and needed to cancel my session. I spent the entire weekend creating new email addresses, updating my resume, and preparing for the possibility that my career at this company was over. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ashley had been fired for her behavior, but she might succeed in forcing me out anyway. The injustice of it made me alternately furious and despondent. My breaking point came when Ashley targeted my best friend from college, Vicky. She received messages on every platform from fake accounts claiming to be me, saying horrible things about her, trying to destroy our friendship. Vicky saw through it immediately, but the fact that Ashley had researched my personal relationships, that deeply made me realize this would never end unless I took decisive action. I called a meeting with Joshua and Benjamin, laying out everything I'd discovered: the pattern of behavior at previous companies, the testimony from Victoria and others, the technical evidence Benjamin had helped me gather. We spent hours strategizing, but kept hitting the same wall. Without proof that Ashley was behind the current harassment, we had no legal recourse. Benjamin suggested a different approach. Instead of trying to prove Ashley was behind the fake accounts, we could make it impossible for her to continue. He proposed a technical solution: flooding the fake profiles with reports, using SEO techniques to bury them in search results, and creating positive content that would overshadow the negative. It wasn't justice, but it might minimize the damage. We spent the next week implementing Benjamin's plan. Joshua rallied my coworkers to report every fake profile they found. Benjamin worked his magic with search algorithms. I started a professional blog about turbine engineering, filling it with technical content that would rank higher than the fake sites. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The fake profiles were suspended faster than Ashley could create them. The explicit sites were pushed to the 10th page of search results where no one would find them. But Ashley adapted. She switched tactics, moving from digital harassment to more personal attacks. I found my mail being stolen, my packages disappearing. Someone kept calling in noise complaints about my apartment, resulting in multiple visits from annoyed police officers. My gym membership was mysteriously canceled. My credit card numbers were somehow compromised repeatedly, and someone even tried to cancel my health insurance. The stress was affecting every aspect of my life. I lost weight, developed insomnia, and found myself snapping at friends who were just trying to help. My sister begged me to come stay with her, but I refused to let Ashley drive me from my city. This was my home, my career, my life. I wouldn't let her take it from me. One evening, while reviewing the latest batch of fake profiles with Joshua, I noticed something odd. The writing style on some of the posts had changed. The grammar was different, the insults less personal. It was like someone else was creating content for Ashley. That's when it hit me. She must have help. This campaign was too extensive, too time-consuming for one person to maintain while presumably working another job. I shared my theory with Benjamin, who agreed it made sense. He suggested we look for patterns in the posting times, the platforms used, the technical signatures of different devices. Sure enough, we found evidence of at least 2 other people involved in the harassment campaign. Ashley had recruited help, possibly paying people to create and maintain fake accounts. This discovery changed everything. If Ashley was coordinating with others, that elevated the harassment to conspiracy territory. Benjamin helped me document the evidence properly, creating a detailed timeline showing how multiple people were working together to harm me. It wasn't quite enough for criminal charges, but it was getting closer. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of Ashley's accomplices made a mistake. They logged into a fake account from their work computer and forgot to use a VPN. Benjamin traced the IP address to a marketing firm across town. A little social media investigation revealed that one of Ashley's former coworkers, someone named John, worked there. The pieces were falling into place. I confronted the situation head-on by calling the marketing firm and asking to speak with their HR department. I explained that one of their employees was using company resources to harass me, providing evidence of the IP address connection. They took it seriously, promising to investigate. Within days, John was fired, and he immediately turned on Ashley, providing screenshots of their conversations where she'd offered to pay him to help destroy me. Armed with this evidence, I finally had what I needed. Ashley had made a crucial error. She'd put her conspiracy in writing. The screenshots showed her explicitly planning the harassment, discussing payment for services, and celebrating when her attacks caused me distress. It was exactly the proof I'd been searching for, but I didn't go to the police immediately. I had a better idea. Ashley had spent months trying to destroy my reputation through lies and manipulation. Now I would destroy hers with the truth. I updated my anonymous blog with the new evidence, careful to redact names but leaving enough detail that anyone who knew Ashley would recognize her. The post went viral within the tech community. The response was overwhelming. More victims came forward with their own stories about Ashley. Former employers shared their experiences. Someone even found evidence that she'd lied on her resume, claiming degrees she didn't have and experience she'd fabricated. Her entire professional history began to unravel under scrutiny. Ashley's reaction was swift and desperate. The harassment intensified. More fake profiles, more explicit content, more attempts to contact my family and friends, but now people knew what was happening. My colleagues formed a protective network, immediately reporting and blocking any suspicious accounts. My family stopped accepting packages from unknown senders. The community support made all the difference. I knew I had to act fast. Ashley's desperation made her dangerous, but it also made her predictable. Benjamin helped me analyze the patterns in her attacks, and we discovered she always escalated on Thursday evenings, probably when she had the most free time. I decided to use this against her. The following Thursday, I set my plan in motion. I created a fake event page for a women in tech networking mixer at a trendy bar downtown, making sure to promote it heavily on the platforms where Ashley had been most active. I knew she'd been monitoring my online activity, and I was counting on her inability to resist showing up to cause trouble. Benjamin helped me set up hidden cameras at strategic locations around the venue. Joshua recruited several colleagues who'd been following the situation to attend as witnesses. We weren't trying to entrap her. We just wanted to document whatever she chose to do. The night of the event arrived faster than expected. I positioned myself near the entrance, greeting attendees while keeping an eye out for Ashley. My hands trembled slightly as I checked people in, but I forced myself to appear calm and professional. She arrived exactly when I expected, dressed in an outfit that was almost a parody of professional attire. Her movements were jerky, aggressive, and she kept glancing around as if expecting an ambush. I watched her circle the room, her eyes scanning for me. When she finally spotted me, her face contorted with rage. She stormed across the room, pushing past other attendees. I stood my ground, keeping my expression neutral as she approached. Several of my colleagues subtly moved closer, ready to intervene if necessary. Ashley launched into a tirade, her voice growing louder with each accusation. She claimed I'd stolen her job, ruined her life, and deserved everything she'd done to me. The entire room fell silent, everyone watching as she unraveled. I didn't respond, just let her words hang in the air. Then she made her biggest mistake. She pulled out her phone and started showing people the fake profiles, proudly explaining how she'd created them to expose the truth about me. Several attendees recorded her confession on their phones. One woman I'd never met before stepped forward and confronted Ashley about similar harassment she'd experienced years earlier. The confrontation escalated when Ashley realized she'd been recorded. She lunged for the nearest phone, trying to delete the evidence. Security intervened, escorting her from the building while she screamed threats and obscenities. The entire incident lasted less than 10 minutes, but it changed everything. Within hours, videos of Ashley's meltdown spread throughout our professional network. People who'd been skeptical about my harassment claims now saw the truth with their own eyes. Former victims reached out with their own stories, and a clear pattern of behavior emerged that no one could ignore. Ashley's current employer contacted me the next day. They'd seen the videos and discovered she'd been using company resources for her harassment campaign. She was terminated immediately, and they offered to provide documentation for any legal action I might pursue. But the damage to Ashley's reputation went beyond just losing her job. The tech community in NYC is smaller than people think, and word travels fast. Recruiters who'd previously worked with her started sharing warnings. Companies that had considered hiring her quietly removed her from candidate pools. I discovered Ashley had been living in an expensive apartment she could barely afford, trying to maintain an image of success. Without steady employment and with her reputation in tatters, she couldn't keep up the facade. Within weeks, she was forced to move back to her hometown in Ohio. The fake profiles gradually disappeared as Ashley lost access to the resources she'd been using to maintain them. Benjamin helped me reclaim my online presence, and slowly, my professional reputation recovered. Clients who distanced themselves reached out with apologies and new project offers. Joshua advocated for me with upper management, documenting how I'd handled the situation with professionalism despite the personal toll. They not only kept me on, but offered me a raise and the lead position on a major new project. It was validation that my work spoke louder than Ashley's lies. My colleagues organized a surprise celebration at our usual dumpling spot. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The conversations flowed naturally, without the underlying tension that had plagued our gatherings during Ashley's brief tenure. Victoria and I stayed in touch, forming a support network with other women who'd experienced similar harassment. We created resources for dealing with workplace sabotage and online attacks, turning our painful experiences into something that could help others. My family's faith in me never wavered, but seeing them relax as the harassment ended brought me immense relief. My sister stopped calling every day to check on me, and my parents stopped looking worried every time we video chatted. The apartment building installed new security cameras after I showed them documentation of the harassment. My car got repaired, and I slowly stopped looking over my shoulder every time I walked to the parking garage. The hypervigilance faded, replaced by a cautious awareness that served me better. One unexpected positive outcome was the strengthening of my friendship with Joshua. He'd stood by me through the worst of it, never questioning my character or work ethic. Our professional relationship evolved into a genuine friendship that extended beyond office hours. Benjamin became a regular part of our social circle, his expertise having proved invaluable. He helped several other colleagues improve their online security, turning Ashley's attack into a learning opportunity for everyone. The experience taught me valuable lessons about documentation and self-advocacy. I learned to trust my instincts about people and to act decisively when someone showed their true colors. The petty bitch I joked about being had evolved into someone who could strategically defend herself. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Ashley had tried to reinvent herself in Ohio, but her reputation followed her. The tech community has a long memory, and actions have consequences. She'd burned bridges she couldn't rebuild. I occasionally checked the anonymous blog I'd created, seeing new comments from people who'd found strength in shared experiences. What started as a defensive move had become a resource for others facing similar situations. My work performance not only recovered, but improved. The focus and determination I developed while fighting Ashley's harassment translated into better problem-solving skills and project management. I tackled turbine efficiency problems with new confidence. The company implemented new policies about online harassment and workplace bullying, using my experience as a case study for training. It felt good knowing that future employees might be better protected because of what I'd endured. Friends who distanced themselves during the worst of the harassment gradually returned. Some apologized for not being more supportive, while others simply acted like nothing had happened. I learned to value the ones who'd stood by me when things got difficult. Dating became interesting in unexpected ways. Some men were intimidated by my story, while others admired my resilience. I learned to see it as a useful filter. Anyone who couldn't handle my history wasn't worth my time. The hypervigilance never completely disappeared. I still double-checked privacy settings and monitored my online presence more carefully than before, but it became routine rather than obsessive, integrated into my daily life like any other security measure. Professional conferences welcomed me back, and I found myself speaking not just about turbine engineering, but also about workplace resilience and dealing with harassment. My expertise expanded beyond technical knowledge to include hard-won wisdom about professional survival. New female engineers joined our team over time, and I made sure they felt genuinely welcomed and supported. I shared my experience when appropriate, helping them recognize red flags and trust their instincts about problematic colleagues. The dumpling dinners continued, becoming a cornerstone of team bonding. We added new traditions and inside jokes, creating a positive culture that made our department one of the most sought after in the company. Looking at my life now, I see how Ashley's attack, meant to destroy me, had instead revealed my strength and the strength of my support network. She'd wanted to paint me as someone who didn't deserve my success, but her actions only proved that I'd earned everything through merit and perseverance. My apartment felt like home again, no longer a fortress against invasion. I'd reclaimed my space, my career, and my peace of mind through strategic action and community support. The girl who'd once hidden in a bathroom stall had become a woman who faced challenges head-on. The engineering problems I solved daily seemed simple compared to what I'd overcome. Turbine specifications and efficiency calculations were predictable, following laws of physics and mathematics. Human malice was messier, but I'd learned to navigate that too.